Let the silence teach you what the noise tried to hide. Let your morning begin with presence, not panic, with clarity, not confusion, and with one final truth echoing softly in your spirit. Some people were not sent to bless your path. They were sent to test your resolve. What if I told you that the only approval you'll ever need is already within you, quietly waiting behind the noise of everything you've been taught to chase? There exists a truth so profound, it has echoed through the minds of ancient philosophers and modern seekers alike. What you feed with your focus grows, and what you starve begins to fade. Yet, how often do we aim that focus outward, trying to win over eyes that will never truly see us, hoping to impress minds that are too busy with their own chaos to care? In the silent spaces between craving attention and reclaiming power, there lives a sacred truth. The more you try to be everything for everyone, the further you drift from who you really are. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me, we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Why is it that we hand over the keys to our inner peace so freely, allowing fleeting compliments or silence from strangers to determine how we feel about ourselves? Maybe it is fear of invisibility, fear of irrelevance, fear that if no one claps, then what we did doesn't matter." But I want to ask you something real. What are you truly chasing when you walk into a room? Are you looking to be seen or to finally see yourself? Most people won't admit it, but they're starving for validation, starving for recognition, starving for some sign that they matter. They post, perform, explain, overshare, all in the name of being visible. But like water poured into sand, the satisfaction never stays. It leaks through, because no amount of likes can ever fill the hole left by self-neglect. Seneca said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." And maybe part of that learning is unlearning. Letting go of the idea that you have to be available to everyone all the time, just to prove you are enough. The truth is, your silence holds more power than your performance. There is gravity in stillness, and those who master it carry a presence that speaks louder than any speech. Imagine walking into a room where the air shifts. Not because you announced yourself, but because you didn't need to, because your stillness created sacred tension, an unspoken energy between who you are and who you are becoming. That's presence. That's power. And that kind of presence doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from surrendering the need to prove. But be honest with yourself. How often do you give away your power in nervous laughter? In quick apologies for simply existing? In always saying yes to avoid the discomfort of saying no? We've been conditioned to believe that being liked is more important than being respected, that being nice matters more than being real. But approval is cheap when it costs you your soul. What if instead of explaining yourself, you just allowed your integrity to be the explanation? What if instead of chasing attention, you became the kind of person who commands it by doing less? Carl Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Could it be that our obsession with being liked is just an unconscious program we've never questioned? Who taught you that silence was awkward? Who convinced you that solitude meant you were broken? Because the Stoics didn't believe that. They believed that solitude was strength, that knowing who you are when no one's watching is the highest form of wisdom. They believed that nothing external, no applause, no affection, no accolade, should have the power to shake your peace. But we live in a world where everyone's broadcasting, and in that constant noise, mystery becomes magnetic. The less you reveal, the more others lean in. The less you speak of your goals, the more weight they carry. Not because you are hiding, but because you no longer need permission to exist boldly and quietly at the same time. There's a sacred discomfort in being seen for who you really are. Not the polished version, not the curated self, the raw, unfiltered, deeply human version. But the moment you accept that discomfort, something incredible happens. your world begins to align with your inner world. You start attracting people who don't need you to shrink. You begin to feel peace in moments that used to feel like war. And you stop needing mirrors to reflect back your worth because you've finally found it in the stillness within. Pass the test and walk on. This is the paradox of true self-respect. When you require less from others, they start offering more. When you stop explaining yourself, people start listening. And when you stop trying to be unforgettable, you become exactly that. So what's the cost of people pleasing? It's not just your time, it's your life. It's every moment you watered down your truth. It's every second you delayed your purpose just to make someone else comfortable. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And other people's opinions are the purest example of that. You will never win the game of being enough for everyone, but you can win the war of being enough for yourself. That begins by withdrawing your energy from spaces that deplete it and reinvesting it into places that build you up from the inside out. You see, when you're always available, you become disposable. But when you protect your energy, people feel its value. Not because you say it's valuable, but because they can sense it in your restraint. A diamond doesn't need to explain its worth, it simply is, and so are you. But let's go deeper. What if the version of you that tries to impress is actually the weakest version, and the version that sits in silence, unbothered and grounded, is the most magnetic form of strength you'll ever possess? Imagine being so secure in your values that rejection feels like redirection. Imagine being so rooted in your purpose that praise can't sway you and criticism can't shake you. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. And clarity is magnetic in a world clouded by confusion. It's time to stop chasing mirrors and start building your own reflection, because when you value yourself, others begin to invest too. Not out of pity, but out of deep respect. But none of that can happen if you keep showing up small, if you keep trading your sacred presence for crumbs of validation. Presence isn't loud. It's not about being the most impressive or the most noticed. It's about being felt, even when you say nothing. And if you want that kind of power, you must let go of anything that demands you betray your inner stillness. That means choosing alignment over applause, stillness over status, character over charisma. Because what you nurture in the quiet will eventually speak the loudest, and in that silence, the real you will rise. And when the real you rises, the world responds differently, not always with applause, but with reverence. Because people can sense when someone has nothing to prove. They feel the calm in your presence. They recognize the weight of your words, not because you say many, but because you say few. And those few come from a place of deep truth. The philosopher Plato believed that the soul becomes confused when it looks outward too much and forgets to look inward. Most of us are wandering through life with a cracked compass, mistaking noise for direction and attention for affection. We mistake motion for progress. But what if the stillest path is the most direct one? What if your silence is not absence but preparation? What you tolerate teaches people how to treat you. Every time you laugh when you're hurt, just to ease the room, every time you stay quiet when you should speak up, you're teaching others that your boundaries are flexible, your self-worth negotiable. But the truth is, your soul was never meant to be a bargaining chip. You are not here to entertain, to perform, to explain. You are here to become, to evolve, to live deeply. And that requires sacred boundaries, because not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, or your soul. You're not a community center. You're a cathedral, and cathedrals don't stay open all night for just anyone to wander in. So ask yourself this: where are you leaking energy? Is it in the messages you answer out of guilt? The people you appease out of fear? The dreams you postpone for approval that never comes? Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but becoming requires pruning. Just as a sculptor chips away the stone to reveal the figure beneath, so must you carve away everything false, borrowed, or imposed upon you. That's where the discomfort lives, in saying no, in walking away, in being misunderstood. But discomfort is not the enemy. It's the sacred tension that reshapes you. Growth rarely comes dressed as convenience. It often arrives wearing the robes of solitude, of disappointment, of hard choices. But within that discomfort lives your rebirth. Because every time you choose yourself, not out of pride, but out of alignment, you create a space where peace can finally enter. Peace doesn't scream. It doesn't beg for followers. It doesn't need to post for validation. Peace simply is. It's the quiet confidence of knowing who you are, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. And in that peace, you'll start to feel something unexpected: joy. Not the kind that comes from outside applause, but the kind that's rooted in integrity, the kind that whispers, "You're enough," not because they say so, but because you finally stopped asking. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. So, what are the thoughts you allow to take residence in your mind? Are they rooted in scarcity or abundance? Do they elevate you or shrink you? You get to choose what thoughts you nourish. You get to choose what kind of life you build, one shaped by the weight of expectations, or one built on the lightness of truth. So this morning, before the noise creeps in, sit with yourself, feel your breath, notice your thoughts, and choose, once again, to return to the center of your being, not for show, not for praise, but because becoming who you were always meant to be is the most sacred work you'll ever do. Because, in a world obsessed with being seen, being whole is the quiet revolution. Now, go be whole. And let your silence become unforgettable.